Have you ever considered that this Christmas might be different from all the others? Not simply because of the circumstances or events around us, but because of what it could mean for our souls? Think about those moments in life when we are faced with something profound, something eternal, and ask yourself, what if this were the Christmas that changes everything? Just as it happened in 1914, when soldiers immersed in the violence of World War I experienced an unexpected miracle. This Christmas could be the opportunity for each of us to undergo a similar transformation, a call to peace, hope, and the miracle that only the Christ child can bring. Imagine those soldiers trapped in cold, muddy trenches, separated by only a few meters of no man's land. For them, that winter was likely a period of uncertainty and extreme violence, and many didn't know if they would ever see another Christmas. And yet, on that special night, something extraordinary happened. It was as if that desperate situation had awakened the miracle of Christmas. It was the winter of 1914. The war, which had begun only a few months earlier, had already reached unimaginable levels of brutality. Millions of men were trapped in trenches, separated by only a few meters of no man's land, a hellish place where the slightest movement could mean death. Every day was marked by gunfire, bombings, and death. Imagine those soldiers, young, full of fear, and far from their families, forced to fight against men they didn't know but were told to hate as enemies. Yet, deep in their hearts, many of them longed only for peace. They were human beings, brothers, sons, fathers, all united by the same hope: to return home, embrace their loved ones, and live in peace. In that context of despair, Christmas was approaching. But what did Christmas mean in a trench? For many, it was just a distant memory, a dream shattered by the harshness of war. Yet, on that sacred night, the grace of God manifested in an incredible way. On Christmas Eve, along the Western Front, something extraordinary began to happen. Accounts tell us that it all started with a song. From one of the German trenches came the sound of a Christmas carol, Stille Nacht, Silent Night. The sweet and familiar melody crossed no man's land, reaching the British trenches. The British soldiers, recognizing the tune, responded with their own Christmas carols. Imagine the scene: men, armed to the teeth, who just moments before were ready to kill one another, joining together in a spontaneous choir. It was as if heaven itself had opened over that battlefield, bringing an impossible peace. But it didn't stop with the singing. Slowly and with hesitation, some soldiers emerged from the trenches. They held up their empty hands, showing they were unarmed. They met in no man's land and shook hands. The miracle was unfolding. Enemies embraced, shared food, cigarettes, and stories. Some even played a game of football, using whatever they could find as a ball. On that Christmas night, at least in that stretch of the front, the war stopped. There were no gunshots, only laughter, songs, and brotherhood. It was as if the Christ child, born in a humble manger, had reached out his hand to those men, reminding them that above all, they were brothers. Brothers and sisters, let us pause for a moment to reflect. What made this miracle possible? It wasn't orders from above. It wasn't an official truce. It was the light of Christmas, the light of Christ, that penetrated the hearts of those men and melted the ice of hatred. It was the memory of an extraordinary event 2,000 years earlier that transformed a world of sin and despair with the simple act of God becoming man. This miracle teaches us that even in the darkest moments, the light of Christ can shine. It reminds us that hatred is not the final word, that peace is possible, but it must begin with us in our own hearts. Those soldiers on that night made a choice. They chose to see the enemy not as someone to destroy, but as a man, a brother. Today, the world is still at war, though in ways and forms different from 1914. The trenches are no longer made of mud and barbed wire, but they exist in our hearts, in human relationships, and in the ideologies that divide people. These are trenches of hatred, division, and misunderstanding. We see them in our families, in our communities, and across nations. We live in a time when humanity seems to have forgotten the beauty of peace, preferring strife and conflict, both on a personal and global level. Think about the soldiers from that night. They didn't have the power to stop the war, but they had the power to choose, at least for a moment, to live as brothers. And that choice left an indelible mark on history. If they, in the midst of a world war, could lay down their weapons for one night, what stops us from doing the same in our own lives? Saint Faustina Kowalska, the Apostle of Divine Mercy, left us a message that burns as a living flame even today. In one of her visions, she saw the Lord Jesus showing her a time of great mercy for humanity. "Before I come as the just judge," the Lord said with love and solemnity, "I am opening wide the doors of my mercy. I desire to pour out an ocean of mercy upon humanity. I want every soul to understand the value of my sacrifice and come to me to receive forgiveness. But remember, this is the hour of mercy. When it closes, the time of justice will begin." The Lord continued, "I open all the doors of my mercy. Whoever comes to me with a repentant heart will find forgiveness." Yet, brothers and sisters, the door of mercy will not remain open forever. Saint Faustina warned us that Christmas is not merely a remembrance of the birth of Jesus, but a call to prepare for his return. This Christmas season, let us ask ourselves, what are our trenches? What are the weapons we need to lay down? Perhaps it is a grudge we've carried in our hearts for far too long. Perhaps it is pride that keeps us from apologizing or forgiving. Perhaps it is fear that holds us back from others. The miracle of the 1914 trenches shows us that peace is possible, but it begins with us. Let us not wait for others to take the first step. Let us be the ones to step out of our trenches, to extend our hands, and to sing the hymn of peace. Dear brothers and sisters, let this Christmas be different. Let it be a moment of conversion, of rebirth. Just like those soldiers who laid down their weapons, we too can do the same. We can seek forgiveness, reconcile, and build bridges instead of walls. The Christ child calls us to follow him, not through force but through love. He is the Prince of Peace, and anyone who follows him becomes a builder of peace. Let his light enter our hearts, illuminate our trenches, and enable us to love as he has loved us. The miracle of the 1914 trenches shows us that even in the darkest moments, God is present. His light never fades. This Christmas, let that light shine in our lives. Let us take the lesson of that night to heart. Peace is possible, but it begins with us. If this message has touched your heart, I invite you to share it. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and tell us how Christmas has brought peace to your life. Together, we can be witnesses of Christ's miracle, bringing his light and his peace to a world in desperate need of it. May the Christ child be born in your hearts and grant you peace today and always.